We're here, we're rocking it, and we have Steven, which I don't think, Steven, have you been on since we've started YouTube?
I have not, but it's nice to see that once I come back, it's just utter chaos, right? Where everything's out of order, and that's how I like
Hells yeah, man. Well,
it.
welcome on. The reason we have Steven on is because we are going to talk a little bit about Oro and his BS that I'm calling out right now. It's still early. I don't know that anyone's complaining about it yet, but I suspect they will be soon. And of these two new characters that just hit Street Fighter V, I've been practicing for the review on Akira, and Steven has been doing Oro.
hmm
We were actually going to talk about Oro's story and how Steven wasn't all that impressed with it.
hmm
But we decided, we ended up getting into not a fight, but, like a little friendly professional discussion about one of Oro's V triggers. And I'm suspecting that of all of the good things that have happened with Street Fighter V in the last year or so, all of the good directions, all of the progress, all of the updates to the mechanics, to the flow of the game to make it more fun and enjoyable, and then they put Tengu Stone into the game, and I am taking issue with it. Now, I haven't seen it come to fruition outside of some of the, like Twitter clip examples, but I suspect that this will do more harm to the gameplay than it will good. But before we get too far into it, Steven, I'd like to open up the floor to you and say, what have you been seeing with Oro, and specifically with his V trigger? Tell us about it. Tell us how it works. Get the people up
hmm
to speed. If they haven't played with it yet.
Yeah, so Tengu Stone is his V Trigger 2, and you have two different types of ways that you can activate it. The standard way gives you, I believe, three floating items that they follow after each attack, right? So the basic thing is that you can continue combos and put together these long, extensive, like, sequences, right? If
Hmm.
you do down and V Trigger activation, you will get, I forgot the name of it, but it's a more intense one. It has five items, does more damage, but the gauge runs out faster. And you're seeing a lot of these heavy, like hitting combos now that people are doing in training mode with that one, right? And so it's a very, very interesting V trigger in that again, it's used to tack on these big damage combos and stuff like that. It's the way that I'm seeing it right now is it really feels a lot like Rose's V Trigger 2. It's one of those things that you're going to get some nice guaranteed damage for the most part on activation, and it's more threatening, like way more threatening, if you bite against a raw V Trigger. So if you're already active and then somebody tries to do something and you hit them, they could potentially eat a lot of damage. Now, it looks really scary. As always, Twitter clips can be very deceptive because you look
Tell
at
tell them what the Twitter clips are showing us so far.
the Twitter clip that got us to start, that sparked our discussion, right, was against a Seth player. It was like, the Seth was in the
The
lead.
Seth player had it coming. It's no nothing you could say right now would be bad because everyone is going like Seth. I don't care.
Yeah,
Kill
I,
that person. So
Seth
yeah,
Seth has some of the lowest health in the game. I think
That's
second to Akuma, right? So it's going to look especially bad with Seth's life bar. And this was an Ultimate Grandmaster Seth too, right?
Yes, yeah, and,
Okay.
and the clip looked especially bad because it was against Seth, right? Again, like you said, like second lowest health in the game, kind of thing. The Oro player activated on a sweep crush counter, and then walked up and did standing heavy punch from point blank range and started the combo.
Hmm.
That's about as dream of a situation as you could get there. That is about as optimized. That's what you're hoping for, right? That they bite on wake up and you get that full combo. The Oro did, like, I believe it was standing heavy punch into medium kick, the double kick, and then spaced it out with crouching medium punch to get a jump in, which is one of the techniques he can do with the Tengu Stone. It was a big combo. It built a bunch of super meter, and it ended up taking, like, what was maybe like 40% health from Seth or something like that.
Oh, come
Was
on,
it?
man.
It
It
looked
was
like
more than half life.
Was it?
These
yeah. It was
combos.
Eh.
like 60%.
Okay,
These
that's fair.
combos.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So the first one that I saw was that was the one that sparked this discussion.
Yeah.
But the first one that I saw was, I think it was day one. It was Monday or maybe early on Tuesday, where someone was just putting just a standard Oro Tengu Stone combo onto Twitter, and it was perfect situation. I think it was a DP punish, which by the way that happens a lot.
Sure.
But a DP punish into activation, and they did something like 738 damage.
Yep.
Now, is that going to happen every round? No, but of course not. It's 738 damage. Even the hardest hitting sequences in this, it's like they sometimes get up to like 600, and that's impressive. This was like day one, first 24 hours of playing with Oro, and it wasn't hard looking at all because a lot of it is just do a move, the debris comes in, hits you, do another move, debris comes in, hits you, do a special, and you can kind of equate this or compare it to Minot's V-Trigger 1, especially from back in the day. But that was like the most technical thing I think you can do in Street Fighter 5 is try to nail those combos where you have like pros that still are dropping them. And I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole because that's not really the focus of all this. But my point is, it was a super relatively easy V trigger to use, and just hitting button, and then super, which, because by the way, as you're doing all this, all of those hits that the debris do also build Oro's critical art meter.
Yep.
So what this comes down to is what we're seeing is Oro's lopping off more than half health if he has V-Trigger and about half of his critical art meter. Because if he hits this V-Trigger, he's not only doing something like 400 damage with the trigger itself, but he's almost always empowered to do critical art to finish it off, and that's putting him up into 600, and sometimes in the most dire or the most grave of situations, 700 damage. And my thing is, as I see that, not only is it relatively easy to do and realistically going to happen, I think it's going to turn rounds back into what they were in earlier Street Fighter V seasons, where V-Triggers were deciding way too much of the outcome of rounds. So now you can have a situation where, and this isn't just Seth or low health characters, Oro has one hit left and you have half life, and you guys are, for all intents and purposes, at about the same amount of life, because if he touches you and he uses Tengu Stone, he's going to combo you all the way, and he has halfway critical art meter. That's game. And I can see that happening and see it playing out in front of me as I'm playing online, and just like, this isn't fun, this is frustrating. He got a single hit on me, I made one wrong read, and it cost me more than half of my life for something that's relatively easy to do. And by the way, that's not where the versatility and the usability of Tengu Stone runs out. It also helps open people up. But I've been talking for a while. You guys can have something to say about it, but
I have to jump in and just say, like, I really take issue with saying that the Tengu Stone is easy to use. I don't think it's easy to use at all. Steven and I have both been playing Oro a good bit, and I don't know if I've landed a single Tengu Stone combo, like, at all. Like, it's hard to get in there. And then one of the other things that's a big thing is, like, don't get opened up right at the very start of the Tengu Stone. Like, make sure you block that initial mix-up. That's a big deal. And kind of stuff of that nature. I have quite a bit more to say, but I did want to say, like, I don't think it's a super easy V-Trigger to use, especially as Steven mentioned the other day, that, like, some of the debris has different hit stun on it, and you got to be aware of what kind of things you bring up there. Steven, could you clarify on that?
Yeah, like, it seems like, obviously with the Tengu Stone, as we know, like, one of the traits of it is that when Oro summons the items, there's a chance to summon different things, right? There's, like, you'll see, like, what looks like a Game Gear flying around. You'll see, like, stones, obviously. You'll see, like a little dinosaur doll or Blanca-chan, right? But, like, there's different things that have different effects. So you'll see, like, fire effects and stuff like that sometimes. So it's weird that it's, like, I don't know what the specifics of each thing do yet, which we'll probably have to do some research on that. But, like, it did feel like when practicing these combos, just in training mode, trying to practice the easiest, most optimal thing in the corner, like, the spacing and stuff is very delicate, is the way that I can describe it. It's like, it works 3 out of 5 times. Like, it's weird. It's like, it doesn't always work the same way that you think it will. And so, like, there's things as well where it's like, in mid-screen, if you activate off of a crouching medium punch or something, it's like, okay, cool, I know the follow-up here, but it doesn't always work. And it's like, the spacing is very specific. I'm not seeing a lot of pro players doing these big combos yet in terms of, like, actual matches, and it's also because it's a 3-bar V trigger, right? And it takes long to get there, And what I was actually seeing a lot of, I was watching some Nemo footage earlier today, and he's doing pretty well with Oro. Like from what he has, some really interesting stuff he's using right now. But the main thing he was doing with that V trigger was activating on somebody's jump and then juggling with medium punch DP and then getting the combo that way, because that's the guaranteed damage, right? It's like he knows he can get 300 to 400 damage, probably 400 damage off of that because he got the jump, right? But you're not seeing as much of the activation on the ground, which is the other point that I bring up of like, not only is it difficult to use, but if you activate on block, it's like, it's not as threatening. It's again, it's kind of like with Rose's V trigger too. Like it's threatening, but if you V reversal, you get them out of there, and then he kind of has to mount that offense again, right? And it's like, there's ways around it where it feels like, and I think John, you could also, Raptor, you could attest to this as well. And we were playing, like when I activated on block, it was kind of like, I can just kind of block this right now. Obviously, Oro has his other V skill, which has an overhead where things get trickier, but it's not as crazy as it seems right now. Like we're thinking about V triggers in the sense of like G's V trigger 1, right? Where it's just, he gets a button, you're carried to the corner, you're eating 400 damage free, like now you're in a terrible position and it's over. With this one, it's a lot of setup, it's a lot of where am I at on the screen? What are the conditions of the match right now? I really have to plan this out and make sure I've got it, or I can just go for the much safer options and just get way less damage. So there's a lot of work to it, which is why I don't mind it as much, because when you're playing it and you get to that point, it's like it's a 3-bar V trigger. It takes a while to get there. You don't get to use V shift as much. You don't get to use V reversal as much. And then when you get there, it's like, okay, now I still need to work for this confirm. I need to work really hard to get this 738 damage. So
it's not free damage.
John, I have to point this out for people not watching on YouTube. You can watch the pained expressions of John Velociraptor here as we talk about this stuff. It looks progressively more and more like he's gonna bite a chunk out of his microphone. Like that's how upset he's getting right now. But John, go ahead.
Well, the first thing I would say in terms of is it easy to land? Again, Oro came out on Monday. So
Sure.
We're recording this on Wednesday. He's been out for all of 2 days now. And I think it was on Monday, again, that it was Brian F. was streaming and he was playing Oro, and he gets like a medium kick or something, goes into Tengu Stone, and then just... The joke was that he just kept pressing medium kick, I think, over and over again.
It was forward medium
and
punch.
finish out the round.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Forward medium punch.
Yeah, because it moves him forward, and that's what I was talking about. There's safer options, and it closes out the round, but it's like that's super safe. That's not doing the most damage or anything like that. Like that's
sure, and even that was enough to lop off about half life, build up that critical art. And my point is that if you think about a Street Fighter round, and the Street Fighter V community is super in touch with this idea right now because V triggers have been way too powerful, way too often, and we've just, like I said earlier, started to get away from that with the new mechanics and with the tweaks that the developers have been putting in. And now we have a V trigger that if he touches you and gets it started, he is able to lop off at least half of your health and probably go into critical art. So much of the round is now like worthless. Not worthless, but so much of it is decided by this one thing. And I'm like, we've made so much progress, and suddenly we're back to what I'm going to call an absolute robbery V trigger. I don't think there's two ways about it. And yes, he has to earn the hit. Everybody has to earn the hit. How often do you find like a stray hit going into V trigger in this game? You have someone cornered, and you take them to the corner, and that gives them V trigger because you've been beating on them. Half the time, the move is to back the hell up and let them either activate from a way that's not going to get like sweep into activate, or you're not going to catch like as you're trying to put pressure, they do a jab, activate, and suddenly they're in the V trigger. Like it's better a lot of times just to cage them because of how powerful V triggers have been. And you compare it to maybe G's V trigger 1, sure, that's been a huge problem, and it's not as bad now because people aren't playing him as much because he's been nerfed around and such, but still the V trigger in and of itself is not fun to play against. It's not fun to lose to, man. And you get out of there and you come away from the experiences with triggers like that either feeling like, oh, I just barely survived, and I feel something of relief from extreme anxiety or extreme frustration. They do not add up to fun. And I haven't experienced it firsthand yet. I haven't had my ass handed to me by an Oro player with this V trigger. But as far as I can tell, here 2 days after the game, or after the character has been released, that kind of thing is going to happen all the time. Once my life bar is half gone, or like 40% gone, now I'm worried about trigger ending it all. And it's not a reset mix-up situation like G's, which I still hate G's V-Trigger with a passion, V-Trigger 1. But at least that one, like, there's resets. So you can argue that Necalli's is super strong. Sure, but he has to hit you multiple times, and you have opportunities to get out of it. If this one hits you, you're done.
He hit you once. He hits you once. He does low forward into stomp, and then he go into super. You've done that to me like 7,000 times, and it does 600 damage, and it puts me in the corner, and I'm stuck there holding a mix-up.
I don't think it does 600 damage.
And you just did that setup to me when we played our sets this morning. Like, you literally just did that corner to me and then put me in a horrible mix-up.
Right, but you had another opportunity afterwards, at least to mix up. And again, those things aren't fun, are they, guys? Like are those things fun, or do you think about that situation and go, man, that really sucks. I wish that wasn't part of my Street Fighter experience. Here's that on crack.
This comes down to, it's really important in my opinion, is we all play characters. We're not Falk players up in here. We all play characters that have really dominant V triggers, and that's kind of the nature of this game. And to me, it's like, look, like if you know the history of Oro, he's the most powerful character in Street Fighter lore or whatever. And the Tengu Stone in Third Strike was a big deal, and people would be constantly shouting, "Hey, hey, hey!" with every hit of it, like they do with Yun. But Oro got up on stream like one time out of 100, so you almost never saw him, right? Because he was mid-lowish tier in that game. But a really dominant and great Oro player could put on a hell of a show and make it incredible. That's what Oro is in Street Fighter V.
That's not an excuse to make the game not fun.
This is Street Fighter V. Like, this is robbery V triggers are the nature of this game.
No, they used to be. Now we've made so much progress. Yes, but they're not like this. And this is just such a blatant return to forgetting all of the lessons we've learned, as far as I can tell.
Okay, name a character like that's winning in tournament right now that has a super crappy V trigger.
I'm not saying that V-triggers haven't been a problem. I'm not saying that V-triggers are still doing a little bit too much, maybe. I've been like, okay, I'll meet you halfway. This is not meeting me halfway. This is meeting me at, like, I have 60% health left, and then it's killing me. So,
the thing
like,
about
yeah, V-triggers have been a black eye, but this is a return to, like, we forgot all of the lessons that we learned. Go ahead, Steven.
What I will give you is that if you look at this V-trigger in a vacuum, you're 100% right. If you look at just this V-trigger, what it is and what it can do, I completely agree with you.
Right, we should look at it in the context of all of Oro's other annoying-ass, jumpy around, crazy shenanigan moves.
Sure.
And, like, fireballs floating around. Oh, you got clipped by that into V. I'm sure it's even worse. You're right,
no,
Steven. I'm sure it's even worse than I'm thinking it is right now. We'll see as things come together. And you guys can remember this, because it will be forever on YouTube, and I will just link this video up.
Nope, it's...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's actually the opposite. All of that stuff is really hard to use. It's really damn hard to use altogether, and if you look at it that way, and again, it's like, I'm just not seeing these pros use Tengu Stone in the way that we're thinking it's going to be used. I'm actually becoming more afraid of his V-Trigger 1, because off of an EXDP reversal, he gets like almost 400 damage or something crazy with the command throw, and it's like, that's a lot scarier to me. That's one bar.
Wait.
That's...
I'm sorry.
V-Trigger 1
off of like a whiff DP, and
no,
then
he
it's
can
trigger 1.
uppercut. He can uppercut on wake up with his EX uppercut, and then cancel that into command throw, and it does a ton of damage because of V-Trigger 1.
Yeah, I don't think it's 400.
It's
but
a lot.
I think it maybe. Yeah, it's I'm guessing, I'll pull up the frame data right here because a combination of damage scaling and all that kind of stuff. But his EXDP is like 140, 160 or something like that, and it's got 16 frames of invincibility, which we'll talk here about later. But yeah, 160 damage, and then his V trigger 1, I'm sure, is like an extra 200 or something like that. Yeah, 200. So there you go. So
like
that's
3 to
so more like 350, somewhere around
3 to
there.
400 damage. Yeah, not too far.
It's
and
with
you're more
damage
afraid
scaling and
of
all
that than 738 damage on a punished DP?
Yeah, because that's 1 meter. And then if he gets a follow-up combo, he has another one. He can do that again, and he can do these long juggles and then end with a command throw and then tack on more damage again, like another 150 to 200 damage. That becomes more scary to me than what Tengu Stone is doing, because I'm not seeing people do it.
Then a definite 600 damage?
Well, it's not definite. That's the problem. I'm not seeing
if
pros
they
do
hit
it.
you?
Well, that if they hit you, but people, I'm not seeing pros do that yet. And maybe there's some setups or something that are going to come later, but I didn't see Nemo. I watched quite a bit of Nemo play, and I didn't see him do it one time. He was doing conversions off of anti-airs. That was his way of doing it. Not the grounded big combos you're seeing. He was just like, I'm going to take advantage of the jump because that's guaranteed for sure. I'm going to get that. And it's like, I'm not seeing these big these big sequences come out. I saw them on Twitter, but I'm not seeing them in actual matches yet. And it's like, there might be some situations where they come up, and you're going to have some really skilled Oro players that know how to set that stuff up really well. But again, it's going to be determined by how well can you use his other tools to set that stuff up and then get it. You're going to see it happen. It's going to happen for sure. But it really does feel a lot like a Monot V-Trigger 1 type of thing.
Which was a problem. So I usually have this kind of a take after I've experienced it firsthand while playing, usually online or playing at all. And I haven't yet, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't run into much in the way of Oro. You and I have played a little bit, and we didn't do this kind of thing hasn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I am doing this earlier than I normally do. But with what I've seen and with as much as I've analyzed this game, this is what I am very worried will come to fruition. So I hope I'm wrong, guys. I hope I'm wrong. But I would like to hear from those of you watching. Please comment and let us know, especially with everything that we've talked about here and the way we've laid it out. Do you think that this is going to be a return to the robbery V-triggers that we've just recently gotten away from? And let us know. Steven, John, did you guys have anything else you wanted to say on this particular topic before we wrap here?
Yeah, I wanted to just add that DLC characters have to be relevant, in my opinion, and this is one of the ways that you make them relevant. And it fits Oro's mold. I have right now no issue with this at all. He's another G character, he's another Necalli character, very highly explosive damage, and they get it primarily from V-Trigger. Necalli's not doing a lot until he gets into super and other things like that on you. He can't convert much, but if he gets into the his stomp into low forward and stuff like that, he's doing a ton of damage and then getting a mix up on top of it, right? That's the kind of explosive robbery characters in this game, and I think that's what Oro is. And again, if he didn't have that, I think he'd basically be abysmal. He wouldn't be relevant at all, and I hate DLC characters that aren't relevant. We've had enough of Falk. We've had enough of some of the other characters who came in and just not be a presence at all. I'm pretty happy with Oro and where he's at right now.
Same, I agree with all of that, and the one olive branch I will extend here is I think Capcom probably needs to look at the meter build on the Tengu Stone on hit. Like, that's something that is kind of like, okay, especially what we've been seeing in the clips. I would like to test that more myself, but from some of those clips, the meter gain from that does seem kind of wild, and that's the one I will give you there. But everything else, I'm like, with how hard it is to set up, I'm like, it doesn't seem like an issue yet. He's hard to play. He's hard to play, and you want to get reward out of highly technical characters like that. Like, because again, as John was saying, if you don't, he's just going to be terrible, and we don't want that. We don't want that from DLC characters.
If he can only win because of this V-trigger like this, then I would say that's not a very good design. But that's another conversation to have for another day.
Mm-hmm.
Steven, thank you very much for jumping on and talking. Again, I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that you're right, but you're freaking wrong, and we'll see you in time.
Hey, thanks,
Steven. Thank you for jumping on for the YouTube thing and making John progressively age and get more angry, just as you spoke about Oro.
Mm-hmm.
For those not watching the YouTube version, you need to watch it just to watch John's reaction. It's pretty amazing. It's the transformation.
It's like that M. Night Shyamalan movie that I hear is really bad.
Yeah, I'm sure you're regretting having me on after not having me on for quite a while. You're probably like, I probably shouldn't have invited him back, but hey, we'll see if I come back later again. But thanks for having me.
That's not how I'm feeling at all.